Have you ever made one reckless decision, only to realize it would change your life? She thought she was only trying to survive. She never imagined what started as an arrangement turned into a love.
The tea in the porcelain cup had gone completely cold, but Maya couldn't stop staring at the dark brown ringet left on the bleached pine table. Across from her, her mother, Evelyn, was trembling so hard the ice in her Scotch glass rattled like teeth. "She's coming, Maya," Evelyn whispered, her voice cracked, clutching a faded silk robe around her collarbones. She said midnight. She said if the briefcase wasn't full, she'd burn the house down with us in it. Maya didn't answer. She looked around the small kitchen of their crumbling suburban home. The wallpaper was peeling near the stove. The linoleum under her boots was scuffed down to the gray backing. For 3 years, since her father died, Maya had worked 2 shifts a day at the local logistics warehouse, trying to plug the leaking boat of her mother's gambling habits. She had paid off the bookies. She had paid off the local loan sharks. But 3 months ago, Evelyn had gone into the city, desperate for a high-stakes table, and laid down a marker with the D'Angelo syndicate. You don't borrow from the D'Angelo family unless you plan to pay them back in full, or in blood. At precisely 11:59 p.m., the gentle hum of the refrigerator was shattered by the low, guttural roar of a twin-turbo V8 idling in the narrow driveway. High beams swept across the kitchen window, blinding and white, cutting through the thin lace curtains. Heavy, measured footsteps echoed on the porch stairs. 2 distinct thuds, expensive leather soles on rotting oak. Then 3 slow knocks at the door. Not violent, not loud. Just an absolute, calm demand. "Maya," Evelyn whimpered, shrinking into the corner near the pantry, hiding her face in her bruised palms. "Don't open it, please." "If I don't open it, they'll kick it off its hinges, Mom," Maya said quietly. Her own hands were stone cold, her knuckles white as she wiped her palms on her worn denim jeans. Maya walked down the short hallway, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She drew a steadying breath, slid the deadbolt back, and pulled the door open. The woman standing on the porch did not look like the brutal mobsters Maya had seen in newspapers. She was far more dangerous. She was tailored, pristine, and terrifyingly calm. Vittoria D'Angelo stood over 6 feet tall in dark leather heels. She wore a double-breasted, charcoal pinstripe suit that fit her commanding frame like a sheath of armor. Her thick, jet-black hair was swept back from a sharp, aristocratic face, highlighting cheekbones that looked sculpted from marble and eyes as cold and dark as midnight oil. A pale, jagged scar ran from the edge of her left collarbone up the side of her throat, a silent reminder of how she had seized control of the city's largest criminal empire at 32. Flanking her were 2 hulking men in black overcoats, their hands buried deep in their pockets. But Vittoria held up one gloved finger, and the men instantly froze, stepping back into the shadows of the porch. Vittoria's dark gaze swept over Maya, starting at her worn leather boots, lingering on her slender waist, and rising to her eyes. A slow, faint arch appeared on Vittoria's dark eyebrow. "You aren't Evelyn," Vittoria said. Her voice was a low, velvet purr, rich with a subtle Italian cadence that sent a sudden, involuntary shiver down Maya's spine. "I'm her daughter," "Maya," she managed to say, holding her ground despite every instinct screaming at her to run. "She's inside." Vittoria didn't wait for an invitation. She unbuttoned her suit jacket with one fluid motion, revealing the subtle leather harness of a shoulder holster beneath, and stepped across the threshold. The faint scent of dark tobacco, sandalwood, and rain filled the narrow hallway. She walked into the small kitchen. Evelyn let out a muffled sob, sinking to her knees beside the table. "Vittoria." "Please," Evelyn begged, her voice high and pathetic. "I have half of it. I swear I have half. Give me another month. Just 30 days. Vittoria didn't even look down at the groveling woman. Instead, she slowly drew a pristine silk handkerchief from her breast pocket and dusted off a wooden chair before sitting down, crossing her long legs with practiced grace. $300,000, Evelyn, Vittoria stated softly, resting her elbows on the armrests, her gloved fingers laced together. That was the marker. You missed the first deadline. You missed the extension. My captains wanted to break your knees last Tuesday. I told them to wait. I can get the money." Evelyn cried. "Maya works. She can take extra shifts. We can sell the house. This house is worth $80,000 on a good day, and it's mortgaged to the attic," Vittoria cut in smoothly. Her cold eyes slowly drifted away from Evelyn and locked back onto Maya, who was standing in the doorway, her head held high despite the sheer terror humming through her veins. Vittoria leaned back, evaluating Maya. She saw a girl who hadn't run. A girl with fierce, hazel eyes, sharp jawline, and an unyielding spine, standing in a house built on cowardice. "Your mother is useless," Vittoria murmured, her gaze tracing the curve of Maya's throat. A bottomless pit of bad decisions. "But you have discipline. I can see it in how you stand." "Leave her out of this," Maya said, her voice firmer than she felt. "This is between you and my mother." "Nothing in this city happens without me, little bird," Vittoria replied softly. She stood up, her tall frame instantly taking over the small kitchen. She walked slowly toward Maya, her footsteps silent on the linoleum until she was standing barely 3 inches away. The sheer power of Vittoria's presence was suffocating. Maya had to tilt her chin up significantly to meet her eyes. Up close, Vittoria was striking, flawless skin, full lips, and a scent so intoxicating it made Maya's head spin. Vittoria raised a leather-gloved hand. Maya flinched, expecting a strike, but Vittoria merely rested the back of her gloved knuckles against Maya's hot cheek, tracing the line of her jaw down to her chin. The touch was light, deliberate, and undeniably possessive. $300,000 is a heavy debt, Vittoria whispered, her dark eyes flashing with something unreadable, a dangerous mix of authority and dark intrigue. "Evelyn cannot pay it. But I think you can." "What?" Evelyn gasped from the floor. Maya kept her gaze locked on Vittoria's. "I don't have that kind of money." "I don't want your money, Maya," Vittoria purred, her gloved thumb pressing gently into the dimple of Maya's chin, forcing her to look higher. "I need someone in my estate. Someone who doesn't talk, someone who obeys, and someone who pleases my eyes." You will work off your mother's debt under my personal supervision. 2 years, my house, my rules. Maya's breath caught in her throat. And if I say no? Vittoria stepped even closer, her warm breath brushing against Maya's ear as she leaned down. Then I hand your mother over to my captains, and you can watch what they do to pay off $300,000. Maya felt a spike of cold panic, followed immediately by an electric, dangerous pulse low in her stomach. She looked at her trembling mother, then back at the formidable, breathtaking woman looming over her. If I go with you, Maya rasped, her debt is wiped. You leave her alone. Her debt becomes yours, Vittoria corrected softly, her lips lingering mere millimeters from Maya's jawline. She gets to live her pathetic life. And you belong to me. Maya swallowed hard, her pulse hammering against Vittoria's gloved thumb. Give me 5 minutes to pack a bag, Maya whispered. Vittoria smiled, a slow, razor-sharp expression of complete triumph. 3 minutes, little bird. I don't like to be kept waiting. The D'Angelo estate was a fortress of black iron, sprawling marble, and security cameras tucked away in the cliffs overlooking the ocean. Maya was brought to a lavish suite on the top floor, far grander than anything she had ever seen. It had a king-sized bed wrapped in dark silk sheets, a balcony facing the crashing waves, and a private bath carved from dark gray granite. But the heavy oak door had no keyhole on the inside. For the first 3 days, Maya barely saw Vittoria. She was assigned tasks by the estate's housekeeper, organizing Vittoria's private library, filing confidential ledgers, and managing the domestic staff. It was clear Vittoria was testing her, waiting to see if she would break, try to steal, or attempt an escape. Maya did none of those things. She did her work with quiet, sharp efficiency. But every night, as she lay in the soft silk bed, she couldn't erase the memory of Vittoria's gloves on her face, or the dark, command in her voice. On the 4th night, a storm rolled in off the coast. Thunder rattled the floorboards of the mansion, and lightning illuminated the dark expanse of the ocean. At 1:00 a.m., the heavy oak door opened with a soft click. Maya sat up in bed, pulling the duvet over her chest. Vittoria walked in. She had stripped off her suit jacket and tie. Her crisp white dress shirt was unbuttoned at the throat, sleeves rolled up to her forearms, revealing sleek, toned muscle and dark ink tattooed across her wrists. She carried a crystal decanter of amber liquor and 2 glasses. "You're awake," Vittoria said, setting the decanter on the dark wood nightstand. "Hard to sleep with the storm," Maya replied, her voice cautious. Vittoria poured 2 fingers of liquor into a glass and held it out. Maya hesitated, then reached out and took it, her fingers brushing against Vittoria's bare skin. A jolt of static electricity seemed to jump between them, making Maya suck in a sharp breath. Vittoria noticed. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned against the bedpost, swirling her own glass, her dark eyes tracking every movement of Maya's face. "My head of security gave me his report today," Vittoria said smoothly. "He said you haven't cried once. You haven't tried to bribe the guards. You haven't even complained about the work. Would complaining change anything?" Meyer asked, taking a small sip of the fiery liquor. It burned comfortably down her throat. "No," Vittoria admitted, a ghost of a smirk touching her lips. "It wouldn't. But most people in your position would have begged for mercy by now." "I knew what I was signing up for," Maya said, looking up, refusing to shrink under the boss's heavy gaze. "I traded my freedom for my mother's life. I'm not going to whine about the price." Vittoria set her glass down and moved with terrifying grace, sitting on the edge of the bed just inches from Maya's legs. The mattress dipped under her weight. "You think you're so brave, don't you?" Vittoria murmured, her voice dropping into that dark, velvety register. She reached out, her long, ungloved fingers delicately catching Maya's jaw. Her touch was warm, searing hot compared to the cool air of the room. "You think this is just a transaction. A punishment. Isn't it?" Maya whispered, her heart accelerating wildly as Vittoria leaned closer. The scent of sandalwood and tobacco hit her full force. "In the beginning, perhaps," Vittoria purred, her eyes dipping to Maya's lips before returning to her hazel eyes. "I took you because I wanted to humiliate your mother. But now, I keep you here because I like looking at you. I like how your eyes burn with defiance, even when you know I own you." "I don't belong to anyone," Maya breathed, though her body betrayed her, leaning imperceptibly into Vittoria's warm palm. "Lie to yourself all you want, little bird," Vittoria whispered, her face inches away now. "But your pulse is racing under my thumb. You aren't afraid of me. You're starving for this." The tension that had been building between them over the week snapped like a dry branch. Vittoria didn't wait for permission. She closed the tiny gap between them, her lips capturing Maya's in a deep, commanding kiss. Maya let out a soft gasp against Vittoria's mouth, the sudden rush of heat overwhelming her senses. It wasn't gentle. It was possessive, intense, and thick with authority. Vittoria's hand slid from her jaw down to the back of her neck, her long fingers tangling into Maya's hair, holding her in place while her other arm wrapped around Maya's waist, pulling her flush against her body. Maya's hands, instinctively, came up to rest on Vittoria's broad shoulders. She should have pulled away. She should have remembered who this woman was, a ruthless criminal, a creditor, a woman who controlled half the city's underworld. Instead, Maya kissed her back. She gripped the fabric of Vittoria's white shirt, yielding to the dangerous, dark, magnetic pull of the boss. A low, throat-deep groan escaped Vittoria's chest as she felt Maya surrender, deepening the kiss, her tongue tracing Maya's lips with fierce, dark passion. When Vittoria finally pulled back a fraction of an inch, both of them were breathing heavily. Vittoria's dark eyes were wild, unmasked, stripped of her usual stoic composure. "Tell me to stop," Vittoria demanded in a low, husky growl, her forehead resting against Maya's. "Say the word, Maya, and I walk out that door. I give you your freedom back tomorrow." Debt settled. Maya stared into the dark depths of Vittoria's eyes. She saw the power, the danger, but beneath it all, an undeniable, fierce desire that was directed solely at her. "Don't you dare walk out that door," Maya whispered. Vittoria's eyes darkened completely. With a swift, fluid movement, she pushed Maya back against the dark silk pillows, leaning over her like a predator claiming its prize. 2 months passed in a blur of hidden shadows and fiery encounters. To the outside world, Maya was still the quiet assistant residing in the D'Angelo estate. But behind locked doors, the dynamic had shifted completely. The boundary between boss and captive had dissolved into an intense, consuming affair. Vittoria was demanding and possessive, but with Maya, she showed a rare, fierce tenderness that no one else in her syndicate had ever witnessed. And Maya had fallen, hard, fast, and completely, for the intimidating mob boss. The peace was shattered on a cold Tuesday night. Maya was in Vittoria's private office, organizing documents while Vittoria attended a meeting with her underbosses in the basement facility. The heavy mahogany door creaked open. Maya looked up, expecting Vittoria. Instead, standing in the doorway was Marco, Vittoria's senior underboss, a burly, scarred man with cold eyes and a permanent sneer. "What are you doing here, Marco?" Maya asked, keeping her composure as she closed a ledger. "Looking for something," Marco said casually, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. He looked at Maya with pure disdain. "Vittoria has grown soft because of you." A little street rat in her bed, turning her head while rival families push into our docks. "Vittoria isn't soft," Maya said coldly, her hands tightening on the edge of the desk. "And you should leave before she finds you in her office." "She won't know," Marco sneered, pulling a silenced pistol from his coat. "Because you're going to hand over the ledger for the harbor accounts. And then you and I are going to have a little talk about who really runs this family." Maya's blood ran cold, but she didn't flinch. "I'm not giving you anything." Marco took a heavy step forward, raising the gun. "Listen to me, girl. You're just a marker to her. A debt collector's trophy. You think she cares about you. You're nothing." Bang. The office door didn't just open. It flew off its frame with a deafening crack. Before Marco could even turn his head, a dark blur surged across the room. Vittoria moved with terrifying speed. She slammed into Marco, her gloved hand crushing his wrist, forcing the gun upward as a shot went off into the ceiling plaster. With a brutal kick to his knee, Vittoria brought the underboss down, disarming him in a fraction of a second. She pinned him to the floor, her boot pressed firmly against his windpipe, the heavy barrel of her own silver pistol pressed directly against the center of his forehead. Vittoria's face was transformed into a mask of pure, lethal fury. Her dark hair was loose, her eyes glowing with absolute rage. "You dare bring a weapon into my house?" Vittoria roared, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. "You dare threaten what is mine?" "Vittoria, wait." Marco choked out, gasping for air under her boot. "She's just a debt. She is everything to me." Vittoria spat, her finger tightening on the trigger. "Vittoria, stop." Maya's voice cut through the chaos. She ran around the desk, placing her hand gently on Vittoria's tense, trembling forearm. Vittoria froze. She turned her head, her dark eyes still burning with lethal violence, but as she looked at Maya's face, safe, unharmed, the rage began to recede, replaced by raw relief. Don't ruin everything for him, Maya whispered softly, her fingers sliding down Vittoria's arm to lace with hers. He's not worth it. Vittoria stared at Maya for 3 long seconds. Then she pulled her boot off Marco's throat and struck him across the temple with the heavy handle of her pistol, knocking him instantly unconscious. 2 guards burst into the room a second later, weapons drawn. Take him to the basement, Vittoria commanded coldly, not looking at them. Strip his rank. Deal with him. The guards dragged Marco out, shutting the ruined door behind them. Silence fell over the office. Vittoria dropped her gun onto the desk and turned to Maya. Her hands, usually so steady, so lethal, were shaking slightly. Did he touch you? Vittoria demanded, her voice raw as she grabbed Maya by the shoulders, inspecting her face and body for any sign of injury. Did he hurt you, Maya? I'm fine, Maya said softly, reaching up to gently touch the pale scar on Vittoria's throat. You got here in time. Vittoria let out a shaky exhale, pulling Maya into a tight, fierce embrace. She buried her face in the crook of Maya's neck, breathing in her scent as if anchoring herself back to reality. When I heard him on the security feed, Vittoria whispered, her voice laced with a vulnerability she had never shown anyone before. My heart stopped. I have built an empire on fear, Maya. But tonight, I realized my only fear is losing you. Maya pulled back slightly, looking up into the eyes of the most dangerous woman in the city. You aren't going to lose me, Maya said firmly. Vittoria walked over to her desk, unlocked the bottom drawer with a small brass key, and pulled out a thick leather-bound folder. She opened it, drew out a single piece of paper, Evelyn's original $300,000 marker, and tossed it onto the desk. Then Vittoria picked up a silver lighter, struck a flame, and held it to the corner of the paper. The debt caught fire, burning quickly down into black ash on the glass desk tray. What are you doing? Meyer asked, watching the flames die out. Your mother's debt is canceled, Vittoria said softly, looking up at Maya with absolute devotion. You are free, Maya. The front gates are open. There is a car outside waiting to take you anywhere you want to go. A bank account has been set up in your name with enough money to start over. Maya stood still, staring at the black ashes of her past. You're letting me go? Meyer asked quietly. I took you as a prisoner, Vittoria murmured, taking a step toward her, her dark eyes soft and pleading. I won't keep you as one. If you stay in my life, if you stay in this world, it has to be because you want to be here with me, not because of a contract. Maya looked at the ashes. Then she looked at the open door leading out to the courtyard, where freedom lay waiting. Then she looked at Vittoria D'Angelo, the terrifying mob boss who had killed for her, protected her, and given her her heart. Maya walked past the desk. She walked right past the door. She stepped up to Vittoria, reached out, and slowly unbuttoned the top button of Vittoria's collar, her fingers trailing down the dark scar on her throat. You paid off my mother's debt, Maya whispered, a faint, confident smile gracing her lips as she pulled the intimidating boss down by her lapels. Now, who's going to pay for mine? Victoria let out a low, breathy laugh, her arms wrapping tight around Maya's waist, pulling her close as the storm outside raged on. "You're never leaving, are you, little bird?" "Never," Maya promised against her lips.